What's up, Psychonauts? So yesterday I took another DMT trip, and today I wanted to talk about it, and I also wanted to talk about some of my ongoing theories about the DMT experience and what is the DMT space and what are the DMT entities. The last time I took a DMT trip, I had this very distinct experience with aliens, and I had the impression that they were extraterrestrial. So going into this experience, I really wanted to explore what is the nature of these entities. I wanted to see if I could come back with any more insight, and I also just wanted to revisit the question, what is DMT space? And I just wanted to gain more insight into what is the DMT space. So I'll start with talking about the space because that is the first thing that I'm presented with in the experience. As soon as I close my eyes and I let the DMT, there's this feeling, it just like goes throughout all of your body. Like my entire body is so, like it's all tingling and like it's almost like this vibratory feel throughout my entire body. And I have my eyes closed, and then, this space starts appearing to me. And the first thing I'm just wondering, like I always wonder, like, what is this space? And the answer I got this time, whether it was me answering myself or if I got the answer, from outside of myself, I don't know. The answer was, it's the mind. So it's not my mind specifically, it's the mind, the one mind. And this is a really consistent idea with some of my other psychedelic experiences, particularly LSD experiences. I often have this epiphany that it's all one mind and it's all in the mind. So there being some sort of like fundamental one consciousness, and the DMT experience being another method to come into contact with this and to transcend the boundaries of your own mind. It sort of all goes together, and it makes sense with my other psychedelic experiences. So this time when I was looking at the DMT realm and looking at this space and wondering what it is, the answer I got was it's the mind. And also I should note, the mind, those are just English words. I guess it implies something. The words the mind imply something, but I also don't want to confuse that for what it is, because what it is unenglishable, and the words the mind don't fully capture what this space is. But it kind of gave me a bit more insight into the nature of this. And I've always used different terminology to refer to the DMT space. Sometimes it's hyperspace, sometimes it's a consciousness space. This time it's the mind. And, there's always this theme of it being this mental dimension. And that's where I was. It was the mind, which my own mind is just a special case of. And the boundaries of my own mind, I had transcended them. Those boundaries are illusionary to some extent. With respect to the whole of reality, those boundaries are illusionary. So that's the space I was presented with. It's the mind. And the most interesting thing is it's inhabited, and it is surely inhabited. And I was observing multiple different kinds of entities, and I wasn't really too much focused on any sort of alien-like entities. It felt like there was this alien presence, but it was not at the focal point of my mind. Really, I was observing these other entities. And there was this funny thing that happened. If you're familiar with the DMT experience, or if you've listened to some of my other trip reports, you'll know that I described this sound. There's this sound to the DMT experience, and it's like this buzzing sound. It's like this frequency almost that you could be like tuning into. And in past experiences, I've really focused in on that sound. And this time I heard the sound, but I wasn't focusing on it. The weird thing is, it felt like I knew that that sound was in fact a signal, that it was a signal from the aliens. And I still maintain that there could be like aliens that are, from somewhere else in the universe, and they're sort of tapped into this universal mind and this universal consciousness space, and that they're broadcasting, or they're sending out this signal within that mind, and that is something that you can follow. You can follow that within the DMT experience, and that leads you to a very specific experience. And my theory is that that's what kind of leads you to the alien extraterrestrial experiences, is like following that sound more. But this time I wasn't really following that. I was actually really struck with how dimensional the experience was, just in that, it wasn't limited to one specific thing. I kind of saw the broadness of the DMT experience and how there's all these different kinds of entities within this mind space. And there was also this distinct weirdness. And I guess this happens with every trip, but this time it was just something that I sort of took note of. It was just how weird everything was. I remember it feeling like, it's just so weird. I can't take it. It's just so weird. And I really felt like embraced by that weirdness. Another interesting thing happened in this experience. I think it was already past the halfway point, but I was still pretty deep into the experience, and I was sort of just like relaxing and letting go, and it felt like I was being transported to like somewhere else in hyperspace. Like by like letting go, something was happening. And I remember this also felt very like dreamlike, at least in the sense of like how dreams work and like how you can transport and how you can travel through different places in your dreams. I mean, like I'm saying, this is all this mental space. So that's how teleportation happens. It like, I don't know, the mind is such a mysterious thing. Consciousness is such a mystery. We just don't know anything. We really don't. But I was experiencing this kind of like brief moment of like I was being teleported somewhere else, but then that kind of went away too. And then as I'm coming down, the experience just gets more personal, and it's kind of hitting me with some of my more personal themes. Lately, I've also been in this kind of pattern of like overthinking and overanalyzing everything, and that's another thing that this DMT experience kind of reminded me of, that it doesn't really do any good to be stuck in that like overly analytical mindset, and that I really could benefit from tapping more into intuition and letting go of some of my tendency to be too analytical. I do think that at some points in the experience, I could have gone so much deeper if my mind would have let go a little bit more, and I would have stopped analyzing it and just sort of like released myself into it more. But also, like, going into this experience, I knew that it wasn't going to be, like, I wasn't planning to have, like, the biggest experience that I'd ever had. So, there's always this bit of apprehension that comes before I go into the experience, and the same thing happened in this experience. I also remember, like, when I was first going into the experience and the DMT, it's all hitting me, and I'm kind of, like, opening up into the DMT space. I remember feeling like kind of like, oh, here we go again, and it's like, I don't want to do this. And then it's like another part of myself was like, you never want to do this. And I guess that part of myself, I guess it's probably like that ego part of myself that, no matter how much I'm, compelled to explore the experience, and no matter how much of a psychonaut I think I am, there's always this part of me that that I'm aware of sometimes that's just like, no, we're not letting go. So there was that. I'm trying to think of what else was interesting about this experience. I just remember realizing that this space was the mind, and that sort of being an idea that made sense to me. It was almost like the entities like knew that that's an idea that I would understand, like that they were kind of giving me this information, like it's the mind, but it's not necessarily direct information. It's almost like a story. They're telling me that it's like this because that's how I can understand it. But really if anything, I'm struck with like how beyond all of this is from anything that I could ever imagine. I don't know how people can think that this exists purely within your own mind. I know the mind is a powerful thing, and the mind is, you know, even just our own minds. It's such a fascinating thing. But I'm very sure that this experience goes beyond our own minds. Like I mentioned, in the later parts of the trip, things were getting more personal, and I think that also makes sense as I'm coming down into the boundaries of my own mind. And you know, maybe I'm not fully in like my sober conscious mind yet, and maybe I'm going through more like things that are, you know, below the surface. But yeah, there's so many levels to this experience, and that's why DMT varies so wildly. Like, you can just have a lower dose, or just with any psychedelic, you can have a lower dose and really just kind of get into themes of your own mind, or you could take higher doses and like transcend beyond your own mind. And with the DMT experience, there's just so many different routes that you can take, and you can follow that buzzing sound, and you can follow all these different frequencies, and there's just so much going on. There is so much going on in reality. It is amazing. I cannot believe more people are not exploring these states of consciousness, because I just can't get over them. It's so fascinating. But that was the main parts of my experience and the main takeaways that I had. Let me know if you've had any similar experiences, or what you think of any of the ideas that I've been talking about with regards to the DMT space and the nature of the DMT space and the nature of the DMT entities. One more thing, speaking of the nature of the DMT entities, back to that idea that there was sort of this like alien signal within the experience. It was funny because it was like these other entities, they were like telling me, they're like, oh yeah, that's their signal. You can follow that if you want to. But it's like I had the option to, and I didn't follow it. I kind of just was exploring other things. But maybe next time I'll follow that signal more. I don't know. There's so much to explore. I can't really decide. But yeah, that is all for this video, and you all will see me in the next one.